Do you see the notice that it is being recorded?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, go back, share this article. Okay. This is a book I wrote about the story of Master Moses in the book of Genesis. I started to write this book after, I think it was 2006 in Mehrabad. I was talking to now Sherwan Anzar from The Glow. He wanted me to write an article about Israel, Judaism, something like this. Then after we had this meeting, I was strolling in Mehrabad, as I used to do from time to time. Then eventually I came, started to envision the first word of Genesis, which is translated in the beginning. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Now in Hebrew, something totally different. And actually what happened that Baba, in a way, gave me the experience of this very first verse in Genesis. In the translation, it's written, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. In Hebrew, in a way, it's similar, literally more or less, but the spiritual meaning behind the words, it's totally different. And what's happening with the Hebrew language, the ancient Hebrew language was, in a way, when the sages read the book of Moses, they had the experience of the creation, a real experience, not like now, when we read a book, it's a mental experience. Trying to understand. If I explain a street in Berlin, they can make as best explanation I can, but you don't experience the street in Berlin because you were never been there. So this first meeting should be an introduction to the book. I wrote a foreword or so maybe I will read it. What I'm going to do, I will read what I'm sharing, and kindly, if you want to say something, the meeting will last an hour, so less, and you can kindly ask questions or present or stop me whenever you feel like. Do you see what I see, the foreword?
Yes.
Wonderful. The theme of the Hebrew Bible is eternal discussion concerning the goal of life, either a creator, if in the affirmative, what is the purpose of creation? These questions are being asked by humanity since some sense of being was developed, and the answers are crucial for our life's purposes. A person who considers life on earth can witness chaos, evil and cruelty everywhere. The strong devours the weak, justice and integrity are hallmarks of weakness. If the Creator exists, or maybe we can name the power behind the creation as infinite intelligence, where is He in daily life? Even from a superficial view of life, obviously we witness the actions of infinite intelligence. The basic cell functions with absolute perfection. Tens of thousands of microscopic factories work together with perfect accord. The very nature of a cell demands that it has to be created at once. It is not possible to develop it by stages, evolutionary supposedly. It is so infinitely complex that there must be an infinite intelligence behind it. Every molecule which enters a cell has to be numbered and counted, and thus the molecules which are being ejected. And the more the organism continues to be developed, so its systems become infinitely complex. So there is no time in the universe to allow these systems to be developed randomly, evolutionary, without a power of thought which acts behind. We cannot imagine that a work of a master artist can be created by itself, as there is no reasonable person who can accept this. It seems that the height of human achievement is music. The complex musical works that exist, which were created by the great musical masters, are an evidence of complexity and perfection beyond human endeavor. The ability to move more than 100 voices and sounds with perfect harmony is an achievement almost beyond the human mind. The most primitive organism is billions of times more complex than the most complicated human creation. It can correct itself and create a perfect replica of itself, accurate to the last atom. The most rudimentary organism is a symphony which unites perfectly millions and billions of elements, and each element creates its sound. Since all are moving and vibrating, the human body is almost infinitely more complex in comparison to the basic cell and capable of functioning for hundreds of years perfectly. It is not possible that such a thing can be self-created. There is only one rational conclusion: infinite intelligence has been operating here. My personal conclusion has been that there is a creator. It is actually my personal experience. The example which I brought above is not a proof, and this was not my path. It is actually an axiom. I know it for myself, but I cannot prove it for others. Is it really? I think it is possible. But this is the responsibility which rests upon each one of us individually. Let's try to follow this great adventure and reach together certain conclusions. The implications are far-fetched. The behavior of humans devoids the awareness that an infinite intelligence is behind the phenomena, unleashes destruction and chaos on Earth in larger and larger scales, as if the human race decided to commit suicide, physically and mentally. Why humans refuse to see the phenomena as it really is? Is it actually escaping the responsibility which rests upon us, individually and collectively? Where are those representatives of truth, supposedly, upon earth? The various religions which claim to represent the Creator, but actually busy taking control of the masses, establishing purposefully divisions and hatreds between the people, and shirking real work. Why that which is so obvious is lacking from human experience? The book before us is dealing with the complex problems which were presented above and offers answers to the questions. I'll attempt to show the issues and what is their meaning from personal standpoint. I'll walk from issue after issue and will develop them according to my understanding. I have no intention to argue with any person of faith. For discussion purposes, I respect any thought and idea. The only thing which I oppose is the worldview based on fear and hatred. Over the years, I contemplated deeply over the biblical texts and also with other sources external from traditional Judaism, which confirm the truthfulness of the Torah. Various spiritual masters who worked externally of the Jewish people confirmed the fact that there was a person by the name Moses and that the revelation on Mount Sinai did occur. How did they reach such conclusions? It is possible that they have capabilities of investigation that an ordinary human doesn't have. Of course, it is not a scientific proof. Examining the archaeological evidence in a laboratory, their words provoke thoughts, and here lies the crux of the issue. What I am writing is my own personal view, and I don't claim any authority. The texts stimulate thinking. Are these stories true, or are they a creation of allegorical writing? Did act here forces beyond our comprehension, or is it a philosophical approach to consider the meaning of life? By the way, Baba proved the Master Moses was true. There was six plane master, and the Exodus, it was a true story and did really happen. So he actually, Baba ascertained the truthfulness of the Torah and the Master Moses and the Hebrew Bible when he said this, because this is the basis of the what we call so-called Judaism, the religion which was developed from the teachings of Moses or revelation of Moses. I am aware that there are a few versions of the Torah. There are slight differences in the texts of various Jewish groups. There is a Samaritan's Torah, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the New Testament, and the Quran, which testify for the truthfulness of the Torah. Sufi masters dealt with it. Some of the Hebrew legends appear in the lore of other nations. There are various debates in the Talmud, but we are not dealing here with historical investigation, and all that concerns me is what is being presented before us and what the texts inspire. I'm dealing with the psychology of the stories, not their linguistic and historical accuracy. When you will read later on what I am offering, you will realize that it has no difference. I'm writing a story based on Jewish mythology and what I am seeing behind the veil. Already as a child, I was fascinated by the biblical stories. I felt very strongly as if I am living the stories. I was really within the happenings, especially the book of Genesis. The stories of the patriarchs, especially that of Jacob and Rachel, had a very profound impact on me. It was very personal for me. The feeling persisted till the age of 9 and then vanished, but the memories survived. In spite of the fact that I considered various sources which explain the Torah within Judaism and outside of it, I am attempting here to explain it from a personal angle, as much as it is possible. I made an effort to disconnect from what I have learned mentally and allow free thinking. It is not a work of comparing texts. It is not a mystical, Kabbalistic article. I didn't study Kabbalah. It is not a scientific, in brackets, research, supposedly, but writing the streaming thoughts which emerge from deep contemplation and actual experience. Truthfully, I have no academic religious, or historic discipline. And if I had to undergo the regular learning process in our institutes, my consciousness would be fixed along traditional thinking, and this article won't see the light of day. From consideration of various things which I say, it might be wrongly interpreted that I place New Age concepts on the Torah stories. The opposite is the truth. I attempt to show that these concepts already exist in the Torah, and many scholars and advanced spiritual persons actually interpret and explain the spiritual Torah of Moses according to the need of the ages, the circumstances, and the mental frame of the people with whom they worked. From considering the issues over the years, I reached the understanding that the texts are based on truth, but were written in symbolic, allegorical fashion, and are right to understand it according to our capabilities. I see the issues as a personal, internal process, which occurs within us, and not only as an external process. The article is also meant to explain the text to the people who view it as an obsolete, old-fashioned religious doctrine, and also to salute incredible people who preserve the text against all the odds and with superhuman dedication. The people, I meant, of course, the Jewish people. So that was the introduction of the book. Do you wish to say something? Okay. So I'll continue. Okay, if nobody's saying anything, then I'll continue. The book of Genesis. Yes?
We're listening. We're listening.
Wonderful, thank you. I appreciate this. I didn't expect, by the way, any visitors, and I would be willing to narrate it nevertheless for the public, because I noticed that people are coming later on and view these sessions. The book of Genesis. The first age or movement from unconsciousness to consciousness, spontaneous creation.
I'm going to go to take a shower.
I see in the Torah three distinct ages of fundamental activities, which in each one certain state of consciousness was created. I don't know if this relates to the linear movement of time, which we usually see as a yearly cycles, or the movement of the celestial bodies. I view the biblical stories and allegories to psychological states which constantly occur within us. Now, as I explained in the beginning, I'll say it again, that when I was attempting to write an article for now Sharon Azar concerning Israel or Judaism or whatever the issue is, I was strolling in Mehrabad, and then I got as if a vision of the very first verse, especially the very first word of Genesis. And what I experienced as if like a moving picture has nothing to do with all these translations. And also when you read the Hebrew superficially, you don't understand. And after I was writing this work, I looked at some of the interpretations on the Torah, and I didn't see anything in the past 2,000 years which said what is being offered here. And the way this book came to be is that I was meditating on the Hebrew verses in Hebrew, and then after that, I started to experience streams of powerful thoughts, which I had to write down. And I had to go around, traveling around, walking around. All the time I had a notebook on me, and this surge of thoughts would come unexpectedly, and I had to write it down. And if I didn't write it down, it would get lost. Sometimes it came back. But this happened to me before, since I came to Baba in 1972. I had all kinds of so-called spiritual experiences with him. But all these experiences were nothing like interesting, fabulous experience of the divine or whatever it is, but everything to do to enhance, encourage spiritual work. Because I never had any claims of being spiritually advanced, and I'm totally ordinary human being like everybody else. Just writing what I was being inspired. And when we look at what it is, what was given, we'll see the logic and the wisdom behind this of the book of Genesis. So the beginning, the first 3 chapters, I included all references from the book. And then I started to give it some explanations as I experienced it. So there's no point of reading or reciting again what was written in English, but the reader can look at it now and read it. And I suspect there are many people who didn't read the Hebrew Bible at all, not in English. And the many Israelis who speak Hebrew and have very little understanding of the Hebrew Bible, of the book of Genesis and the stories of Moses, even maybe all studied in school. But in the religious schools, of course, they give it this is the key issue, the book of Moses, and its interpretation. The interpretation actually is the book of the Talmud and the commentaries, where the sages were trying to explain what is behind the veil, behind the words. It is not possible to translate Hebrew texts literally, definitely not the Hebrew Bible. Ancient Hebrew was a graphic, picturesque language. When the ancient Hebrew scholar read the text, he actually could experience the events as if he saw it as in the movies. It was a real experience, not abstract, mental as today. And I think it's not only they saw it in the mental eyes, but the experience was much deeper to the level of smelling and feeling, etc. They were really inside the whole thing. They experienced the very process of creation. And this experience of very process of creation was actually the basis for initiation of the prophets, which was the main issue of what was generated after Master Moses, especially in the first temple. The first temple was actually a lodge of initiation, and most of the prophets were being educated how to reach out to the divine and bridge the gap between the divine, or so-called God, and the earth, the physical world. And we will explain what happened. Later on, we will explain why this gap was created. It was not in the beginning. The letters, or more correct, glyphs of the ancient Hebrew language used to be like slides, still frames, in brackets, in a motion picture. Each word provided an episode in the moving picture. There were no spaces between the words, just the same in a constant movie film. The Torah, the original Torah, was given. You see here between the words are spaces. The original Torah, the book of Moses, there are no spaces. It's actually one constant. It's one long word, and Master Moses taught the sages and the people who inherited him how to read it. Just the same as we speak, there are no spaces between the words, and we understand each word separately. This is a mystery. I don't read it like the separation of the words was. We read it as one constant sentence. It is actually when we speak, we say only one word. It is like a song. And we understand that our mental apparatus knows how to differentiate. And that's a real miracle. The separation of the worlds was actually a descent to gross matter, the fall of man from the spiritual state to a more dense mental state. The moving images tend to be mental structures devoid of fluidity. When we speak, there are no breaks between the words, and we still understand each word as if each one is a sound by itself. In Hebrew, the text has a very different picture. I'll consider the very first word, Bereshith. In English, it is being translated in the beginning. Now, what experience in Merabad is this first word? It came alive in my mental imagination. I didn't see any visions like the prophets. Everything was in my mental realm, in the imagination. But this is a real imagination. Why it is a real imagination? Because it was influenced by Baba himself. And what Baba gives you is reality and not just a vain imagination. And this is a serious business, and they will see, while we delving into it, you will see the rationale of the whole thing and the wisdom behind everything. In Hebrew it says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. This is Hebrew, the first verse, in the beginning, etc. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Listen to the sound of brrrr. It feels like a process of something that is percolating and about to spring forth to be born. We can make a little exercise. The letter B can be pronounced when the mouth is almost closed. The letter R, you don't say it like we do it in Hebrew or Arabic. R is a deep guttural sound. English-speaking people don't pronounce properly the R. You have to listen how people who speak Arabic or Spanish pronounce it. It's a very deep guttural sound, like igniting a motorcycle. The letter shin in Hebrew looks like a fork. It is like this, if you see my hand. Or maybe later I instructly showed it in Hebrew. It looks like a fork or three arrows. The letter TH at the end denotes movement. Stand a bit bent while the eyes are closed and start pronouncing B softly. Because when you pronounce B, when you pronounce M, the mouth is completely closed. When you pronounce B, which is the beginning of creation, the mouth starts to open up a bit, and this is the beginning of producing a sound. And the whole creation is producing sounds, movements, and sounds. Then while straightening your body and slowly opening your eyes, pronounce R. Then when you stand completely erect, pronounce Shit. While your hands are being raised up and the fingers pointing forward like shooting arrows. I try to make a little demonstration. It is, if you see me, it goes something like this. This is what I actually saw. I saw boom, something, boom. I experienced it in Meribah. And this was a key, the first key, which gave me how to understand and read all this. We'll continue the sharing, if you agree.
Yes,
Okay?
yes,
You want me to continue? I'll continue nevertheless.
yes.
Okay, I'm trying to give here, which is almost impossible, the feeling, what I felt while trying to transfer my experience. I know it's almost impossible because you have to experience it. It's very hard. But I think with some, if you will look at it, you'll see, you'll understand what it means, what it is. Only the letter M can be pronounced when the mouth is completely closed. This can remind us of the on point, which traditionally is the original point of creation. But in the letter B, the sound is becoming and springing forth. That's the whole point. The sages made a whole big story why the Torah started with B and not with A. A movement is being created. Movement creates sound, and thus consciousness is being created. It's actually the mystery of creation. Baba explained it quite well in God's specs, tried to explain it to us, as if the still ocean, all of a sudden there is a ripple in the ocean, and the ripple is started to create waves, and the waves create foam, and the foam created bubbles. So there started a movement. The bubbles, each one of us is a bubble. What is a bubble? There's a skin. Our skin, this is the skin of the bubble. Each one of us is a bubble. Feels as if we are separate from each other. This is only in imagination. But this is a mystery of creation. How come the first word in the Bible denotes the explosion of oneness, the Big Bang, the spiritual Big Bang, which is the explosion of the division, or how to say it, explosions of oneness to manyness, to endless beings. That's the mystery of creation. In order to solve the mystery of creation, we have to walk the path all along. It is well portrayed in the book of Genesis and Exodus. We have to read these two books together. The book of Genesis dedicated to the creating states of consciousness, the whole book. And we look at it. And when we look at it, then you will see how the book well rhymes with Baba's teachings in God's specs and other sources. And traditionally, Master Moses wrote this book with the avatar. He and the avatar, presumably in the form of Lord Abraham, were convening on the Mount of Sinai. And we'll deal about all this later on. It's a whole long story. When we will go through the whole story till the end of Genesis. I wrote the explanations till the end of Genesis, and maybe we'll continue throughout the rest of the 3 books. Depends of Baba willing, as we call it. Okay, I'll continue. I'll read it again. After repeating the exercise for a few times, we can have a faint idea of the process of awakening from a state of non-movement to movement, from dormancy to wakefulness, from a state of complete silence to the bustling of active life. Somebody want to say something?
No, I just, I like that phrase, complete silence to the bustling of active life. It just tickled me somehow. I like it.
Okay, I guess we will enjoy more such things. Everything, whatsoever I wrote here, was influenced by Baba himself. I had such experiences before writing this. In daily life, you will see me as a total ignorant, making all kinds of funny mistakes, totally ordinary human. And I myself often being puzzled, how come I'm writing such things? I'm still a most ordinary person, but that's presumably the wisdom behind it. So Baba wanted it to come naturally, not if I would be so-called advanced soul, a perfect being on the 6th or 7th plane, then we say, you know you are there, but I'm just an ordinary human. That's the whole fun of the whole thing, because what it says behind the scenes, that it is open for each person. If it is open before me, and I'm not more clever or better than anyone else, it is an open book for everybody. The whole project, the only thing I've been doing since Baba walked into my life is to focus on him. That's all what I've been doing. I didn't make any mental, spiritual exercise. We're not sitting on nails or making long fasts and all these stories. Nothing. That's his will. If he wants something, the yogis will stand on one leg for 20 years. And if you don't have any spiritual experience, don't know anything. So it doesn't matter. If he wants to give you some insights, what's the use of all these exercises? It's nothing. So I interject some of my Baba experiences, which obviously I didn't write it in this book for a very good reason, as you can understand, because writing it simply doesn't belong, but we will see later on, all the time, the hand of the avatar in this book, in the book of Genesis, and this interpretation. This can remind us of a few theories belonging to various schools concerning the process of the primordial creation, supposedly. What we describe as God was in a state of non-consciousness and due to deep urge which sprang from the depth of infinitude to know itself, a process of awakening occurred in order to move from the state of non-consciousness to consciousness. It is not a beginning, but an endless process of awakening, which continues all the time. This metaphor, which is being symbolized by the word Bereshith, is actually the shattering of the infinitude to endless individuals. Who is the very first individual? To my view, already even in the most rudimentary particle, some form of consciousness is latent. From the moment an individual enters movement, consciousness is being created. Any movement is being recorded as individual memory, which is its capacity is infinite. This is an axiom. Everything in creation has consciousness. This is what Baba is saying. As soon as we being oozed out, supposedly from their own point. We are being pushed to the creation. He said in his books, we get a droplet of Chaitanya, I call it consciousness, a droplet of something. And this droplet has an infinite storage of memory, because from the very first beginning, every movement which we have been doing, movement, everything is being recorded in the subconscious mind. Actually, I differentiated to three states of minds we have. We have the wake mind, with which we communicate, the subconscious mind, the storage of immediate memories, which we can go backwards a year or 10 years ago or 50 years ago, depends on our memories, go back to the first day of school, but you don't remember anything from the very beginning of creation. We don't know what happened. Some people have past lives memory, but they don't have their first memory, how was they being born and moved to creation. You don't have it, nobody has it, but the perfect masters, they have it. If we will consider this process from the individual standpoint, we come back to the state of awareness while we wake up from sleep, return to the state of conscious awareness from a state of non-consciousness. Within the depths of our subconscious mind, an urge starts to percolate, some kind of an excitement or sound, which wakes us up and forces us to act in the world. This process describes the process of awakening from lack of consciousness to the state of complete wakefulness.
Mm.
So we have consciousness, latent, a glimpse of consciousness, which gives us life. As Baba said, Phyllis asked Baba, what are we? He said, we are consciousness. Phyllis thought, I guess you know it from her center. She asked him, she was a very intelligent, clever Jewish person. And she asked him tough questions. To my knowledge, I met, yes?
Phyllis, yeah.
Phyllis Ott, yeah.
Yeah.
Very sharp woman. I met her in Mayor Center in the 90s. She passed away a while
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
She was an unusual human being.
Yeah.
Actually, each one of us goes through this process individually on a daily basis.
Sure.
The clue where we are heading is already latent here. The solution exists within each one of us.
Mm. Yeah.
So try to imagine that we wake up and there is nothing around us, nothing at all. We are back at the primordial state where physical creation doesn't exist. What I'm describing here actually is the very first meditation. And this meditation is actually a non-meditation. I will describe it, then we'll read it till the end. We have no senses, no sight, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. Internal sensations do not exist, since there are no external stimuli to evoke such feelings, and thus there are no thoughts. But nevertheless, there is something, a hidden feeling that something is missing, some kind of individuality exists, which aspires to know and understand. This is a subconscious urge, but this basic feeling is a cause which pushes the effort to create something out of nothing. It is very difficult to imagine this in this late stage. We wake up daily to an already prepared physical creation.
Mhm.
All that exists is complete darkness, which is no darkness, since light doesn't exist. Since there is no light, we don't know that we are in darkness. This is what I'm trying to explain here. The very first experience of non-experience, the very first meditation of non-meditation. This is the root, the basis of spiritual understanding, to try to experience the void, the nothingness. That's what is being portrayed in this sentence. To try to experience the very first beginning before we became to be. Because when we'll have some feeling or understanding or experience of this very first feeling, experience, or whatever it is, this will give us some clue for later on experience of who we are. So it's very important to understand this. And usually you don't say this, what being offered here. I don't know in which spiritual book they tell you that at the very beginning you have to exercise nothingness, which is the basis of everything. And if you think that my mind came up as this, forget it. You can interview me later and see that I don't think like this, don't say anything like this. That's why I keep on saying that these things came from Baba. Envisions that we are without body, lack any sensation and thought. There is no physical existence, no hearing, smelling, seeing, and no other sensation. What do we experience when we have a most rudimentary spark of consciousness? What would we feel at such a situation? Would an internal subconscious compulsion be emerged within us that will aspire to experience and understand? I'm trying to recreate our feelings when all this process was in its initial stages. We can enter inside ourselves and try to envision such a primeval state. Possible that due to some effort, we might experience some kind of emptiness, vacuum, which is actually the first state before creation. Recreating this state in our consciousness might give us a unique standpoint concerning the meaning of life and its course. The process of creation is actually a process of creating states of consciousness, and these are being expressed, materialized, or solidified physically. What was actually created in the beginning. We can see from the example above that the first thing which was created was sound. Everything in creation has its own unique sound. Consciousness is a solidification of the first sound. What it is? Every movement creates a sound. Each sound creates a state of consciousness. Therefore, even the most rudimentary particles have some kind of consciousness, since they are constantly moving and generating sounds. I don't know what the science will say about this, but it started to pour into the, what they call, no, science started to delve into the word escaped my mind all of a sudden. It'll come back. What is consciousness actually? Isn't it the basic question we should ask? We will stop in a couple of minutes and then you can share a little bit. Maybe we'll stop here because it's already 5 before we almost saw the market. So we know where we stopped for next time. And we stop sharing. And if you want to have some question dialogue, you're welcome.
You know, when you were talking about all the cells, and I had this experience in hearing Baba's mystical language. Only one time I had it, but the thought occurred to me that every single cell of my body was nourished by what I heard. That was the experience I had, and it was very beautiful. So I think it's very important to not be trapped by your language. Let your language I just I feel in that listening to the mystical language being read, it's not the word order as I would do, but I just let my mind have a vacation, not thinking, and it's quite wonderful, quite wonderful.
This is what being offered with the first meditation, to experience the vacuum state before there was something. Now, when we do it, when our mind is full of impressions and sanskaras, it's almost an impossible thing. But we should try to meditate on the first non-meditation. And then we might have a glimpse of the beginning of the process, and this might give us a basis for spiritual understanding, because we cannot understand reality without understanding the void, the nothingness. That's the basis.
Yeah, but I just think it's a tremendous grace right now that Baba has offered this mystical language, because the world's in such a terrifically bad state that it's really one of the only things I can listen to. I think it's telling things like they are, you know, and it's just nice to hear truth. Nice to hear truth. Refreshing.
Thank you.
Etzion, I wanted to ask whether that feeling is peaceful or frightening, or how does it feel?
Nothing. Nothing of peace, nothing of frightening. It is a non-feeling. You have no feelings. I'm trying to offer something for us to try to imagine something before the very beginning, before the very beginning. And this is actually impossible for us, and understand it. And at least so we'll have some mental understanding that there was such a state. Baba speaks about this in God Speaks. But the question is not to study God Speaks mentally and to have some experience. Experience has nothing to do with feeling. I'm talking about a state. There are no feelings, no thoughts. There is absolute nothingness, but there is something. There is something within each one of us. We take a person that you cut off all his senses. These are actually portals in our skin. Portals in the skin, as if supposedly it's all actually we can get into it. It's complete imagination. It really doesn't exist. But this is a game of creation. Baba said it's all an illusion, but we have to also to understand that this kind of illusion. It's not going to be having an understanding at first glance. What we tried this evening to sow a little humble seed, which will blossom later on. And we will see that the Torah, the book of Moses, gives explanations to all these questions which have been raised now. We'll see a line of logic throughout these two books of Genesis and Exodus. These two books are linked together and we will experience it. It simply will take some time because I wrote in English, it's 260, 270 pages. Hebrew is 30% shorter, so study Hebrew, it will be a quicker session. I actually also have sessions in reading this material in Hebrew with two friends, Israeli friends. And it is really powerful because we read the Hebrew. I read the Hebrew in this spirit. We're already quite deep into this. We already 2/3 into Genesis or more. We started to read about Joseph. I don't know if you folks have some understanding of the book of Moses. So if you want to, it'll be some kind, if you want to continue sharing these meetings, it might be wise to read the text in English.
So are you
Yes.
talking about Joseph in the many colored coat in Egypt?
Yes.
Oh yes, yes.
The
Yeah,
boy with many.
yeah.
This is one of the most
They were
powerful, significant stories.
like Mara told that story on the porch one time.
About
And
Joseph and his.
yes, and Zuleika. And she said it was so beautiful. I thought Mara she knew what love was, but she says, and she got real excited, and she went, and Zuleika loved Joseph so much that she had him put in prison. And I just thought it was just.
Was Joseph or Yosef was a living angel. When you saw him, all the girls went insane, totally insane. He was so good looking. To call him good looking is misnomer. He was unbelievable. So of course his patron, the lady, who the wife of his custodian, she wanted to get united with Joseph. And she was extremely good-looking woman. She was not exactly ugly. And Joseph had a very serious issue about this. He was a young boy. He was just 19, 20. And we are quite hot-tempered those years. And he was a normal human being. But he was received the mother of his father, Israel, was on him and prevented him to get into this snare of falling into this woman. Otherwise, if Joseph would make sex with that woman, we wouldn't be on earth any longer. The whole process of reestablishing humanity would be foiled. And we will learn later on in this book how fragile the attempt to reconstruct humanity has been. This is incredible. Tremendous forces have been acting against us, humanity, spiritual beings, and they're not evil. They simply are fed up with us. They don't want us to be healed anymore. They're powerful beings, But even these powerful beings have to comply with the avatar wish. Nobody can oppose the avatar. And this was Abraham. But when we'll study the stories, we'll see how the whole thing was so extremely fragile. It's incredible story. And if so you wish, we'll continue with this next week.
That's it. I have to say, it's so funny because you know what this reminds me of? You're talking about the powerful being. When Nara flew open she pushed open the door and came over to you and she says, "Why won't you take Darshan?" And you went down, and I thought, that story had a happy ending.
My story with Mera, yes, I had a few powerful stories with Mera. Mera is my.
Oh my gosh, I loved hearing that. You know, it's a grace for you to tell it. I wanted to hear it again, and you sort of didn't want to tell it again. But that is one beautiful story.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Have you guys been here since from Eastern time, East Coast time?
Yeah.
1 till now, till 6?
Yes.
5 till 6.
Wonderful. My gosh.
Yeah.
What kind of perseverance? My gosh.
No, it's
I would have
been
never dreamt.